got with the foreigners, Philippines, eh?
Now, in this video, I'll tell you about 17 foreigners arrested for a massive scam in the Philippines, an update on that UK 18-year-old teen facing life in prison for smuggling, an arrest
Jesus.
warrant is out for ex-presidential
An
spokesperson
18-year-old
Harry
caught for
Roque,
smuggling.
and
Holy
the
shit.
SUV driver who jammed into people at the Naya airport causing 2 casualties,
Oh,
released
shit.
on bail, and 2 positive stories in the end to keep you sane. Here's our main story. Philippines authorities from the National Bureau of Investigation arrested 17 Taiwanese fugitives, one of whom is a female, on May 15th after they were reportedly conducting scamming activities in a subdivision in Cebu City. According to the NBI, 6 of them who had been hiding in Cebu are members of the Four Seas gang
It's a
in
goddamn
Taiwan
call center,
and already
dude.
have warrants of arrest here.
They're
During the
they're
operation, the
fucking
NBI
call
discovered that their
centering
suspects were
scamming
running
people.
a romance
On Discord
scam,
too. They're using
scripts
Discord as
to
shit.
lure their victims. Authorities in Manila were able to track down the group after one of the suspects, who had an outstanding warrant, booked a flight from Manila to Cebu. And just like that, the whole thing fell apart. One dude with the warrant booking a flight from Manila to Cebu. Here's one thing I never understood. Firstly, who are all these people falling for these scams? I've always wondered that. It can't be like regular adults, right? I'm assuming it's got to be somebody like 18, 19, just young adults with no experience, or someone that's really desperate.
Well,
I
I
just
mean,
don't
it could
know how
be
people
kids with
keep
their credit
falling for
card,
this.
or mom's
Or I just
credit
wonder,
cards,
what
right?
is it? Like, is it that one girl from the gang basically talks to a bunch of men? Because like a romance scam, right? So I'm assuming that
Yeah,
one
it could
girl's
be a
talking to a whole
romance
bunch
scam.
of people, getting their numbers and sending it off to the 17 or 16 other men who continuously text these guys back and forth. So the whole time you're thinking you're talking to this attractive, I assume attractive, beautiful girl, yet it's just some dude basically, and whenever it's
posting
time for the photo
pictures,
and the video call, then the girl just simply
or
appears. That's the only way I can see
come
this kind of
find
stuff
me in
working.
your
But
area
imagine how
type of thing,
lucrative it
right?
is that it still goes on all around the world, and 16 people are still able to profit based off of that.
Hot women
So
in your
another one of
area.
these things that always
What
makes you
now?
wonder what the heck is going on out there. Next up, the driver of the SUV that crashed into Bullard at the entrance of Naya Terminal 1 on May 4th that took the lives of 2 people, including a 4-year-old, has been released from detention after the court granted him bail. Manila International Airport Authority says the regional trial court set the bail at 100,000 pesos for the 47-year-old driver. He was charged with reckless imprudence resulting in double homicide, multiple serious injuries, and property damage. And then quickly, an arrest warrant versus Roque and Ong. Regional Trial Court in Angela City has issued a warrant arrest against former human rights lawyer and ex-presidential spokesperson Harry Roque and Whirlwind Corporation Incorporator Cassandra Ong. Cassandra Ong was the other person, along with Alice Guo, that had a lot to do with the Pogo situation, and also Roque is wanted on some of those charges as well, plus trafficking. Next up, an update on 18-year-old UK girl, a chilling report into Georgian prisons where Bella May Cullen is expected to serve her sentence if found guilty.
Bella May
Described
Cullen.
hellhole jails with filthy, sewage-filled cells, 75 people sharing 25 beds, and brutal punishment for everyone who steps out of line. The British teenager accused of attempting to smuggle 30 pounds of grass through an airport could face a lifetime behind bars. The Tbilisi prison...
No, wait, what a dumb bitch. Holy shit. She was trying to smuggle 30 pounds of weed? No way. That's fucking insane. What? Why is she so retarded?
Number 5.
Oh, I'm just gonna use my looks to get by. Oh, no, didn't work.
From all over the country, and where Bella could spend the next 9 months before her trial.
Shit.
But reports by Human Rights Watch reveal that inhumane and degrading conditions inside the country's grim Soviet-era prisons, where Bella may end up being locked up for the rest of her life. The human rights group, which visited Tbilisi Remand Prison number 5 in May 2006, described chronic overcrowding with 3,500 prisoners crammed into a facility designed to hold 1,800 and growing by 18 new detainees every day. And that was 20 years ago. Overcrowded cells allowed just 1 square meter or less per prisoner. The reports found that some cells having 1 bed for every 3 inmates. 1 cell with just 25 beds held 75 people. One person who was detained at this jail for several weeks described his cell as a wild place where they took turns to sleep, I guess her cell, to sleep, and where sometimes 3 people slept together in 1 bed. Another said, "It's so crowded here, I can go crazy." Yeah, and that is why that should be an ultimate goal for you not to go to this prison, a complete
Yeah.
deterrent. Why
You
do
don't
people
want to be
keep
in
doing
these
this?
prison
Why take
systems,
so much
especially
illegal
if you're
substances
fucking
across international borders?
not a
Now,
citizen
they
of
said
that
that they met a
goddamn
bunch of other
country.
teens. Some people. Oh, by the way, she's pregnant too. So there's that. It's just absolutely
You'd
crazy
rather
story to
be
me.
in your
I don't
own
understand people.
goddamn
Don't
country's
you? At
prison, because
18,
it's
you're
much
living a good
nicer,
life, and now you're gonna face
to
like
be
real.
honest.
And that's the other thing. A lot of people think like online is life. It isn't. You know, like a lot of people, especially younger people, they
Yeah,
have no
fuck,
real
man.
life
I'd rather
experiences, and they
be in
think something is cool,
the
but they might get away
U.S.
with it. And sometimes maybe in
system
her
than
life she
any
got
of
away with
these
a lot
other
of stuff.
Asian
Assumption,
countries.
obviously, but
Dude, some of
reality
those
is very
prisons are
different than
fucking
online.
bad.
Sometimes, you know, you can see people posting pictures, going to
They're
nice
so
places,
bad.
you know, spending time at resorts and all that. But this is like a reality
You think
check.
the
Let's go to
U.S.
Thailand.
You
Thai
think the
officials said
U.S.
Wednesday.
prison system is inhumane? Holy shit! You should see the other ones.
They seized 238 tons of illegally imported electronic waste from the United States.
Most of the
at the port of Bangkok,
Western
one of the
countries,
biggest lots
their prison
they found
systems
this
are
year.
the nicest.
This year, so I
It's
guess it's
the
been happening
Eastern
quite often.
countries
It's not
you
even the
don't
biggest
wanna
one.
fuck
I've always
with.
heard about people like countries sending the trash to other countries. A lot of it goes to Southeast Asian countries, the U.S., and maybe Canadian one. There was like a big story I think a few years back where Canada and the Philippines, there was all back and forth. I think back in Duterte's time. Anyways, so yeah, I feel like these kinds of crimes should be taken extremely seriously, and they gotta stop coming after me from my straw that's plastic instead of going after these people that are importing 238 tons of illegal trash. Staying in Thailand
Illegal
quickly,
trash,
Thai Air Force on
yes.
Friday posted on Facebook that they have dispatched two F-16 fighter jets near Thai-Myanmar border in Kanchanaburi province shortly before 1 p.m. after they detected Chinese-made Burmese K-8 jet near the Thai border. Chinese always sending either ships or planes for surveillance or research. All kinds of stuff going on with
they're
that. I
always
always see
doing
stories
weird
like this.
shit.
Japan, Vietnam,
Yeah, that's why
Philippines,
everyone's
of
like,
course, Thailand, always gotta basically shoo off these Chinese vessels or aircrafts that claim to be just simply doing research. And one very quick update
yeah,
about
simply
that guy
doing
yesterday that
research.
held those
Yeah,
people hostage.
they're
in
seeing how
Bangkok.
much they can
He's now
push
been
in
arrested,
and seeing
facing some serious
what happens
charges.
if
Luckily, from my
any
understanding,
conflict
no
were to
casualties,
happen.
and now he's under arrest. In some sad
If
news,
they
a
would
Filipino
push-
climber has passed away on Mount Everest. Officials said Thursday, becoming the first fatality of this year's climbing season.
They're
on the
trying to
world's
figure out
highest
when's the right
mountain.
time to attack.
When I was younger, this was
literally.
like a cool feat. People trying to climb Mount Everest.
Why do
I
you think
like
they keep
back in
fucking
the 90s, there
surveilling
were
the
only a
area
handful of
like
people
that?
were doing this.
They're
And
looking
from my
for
understanding
points of
now, it's
fucking
become like a big
weakness.
time tourist attraction. People taking helicopter rides up there, taking shortcuts. I just don't know if it has the same kind of clout or flex. If you could count, obviously I could never do that. So, like for me, it's a big deal. Obviously, I'm saying for like naturally talented climbers, like I guess Mount Everest is still the Everest of everything. So let me know what do you think of this whole Mount Everest situation these days? Because I know it's not really what it used to be from my understanding of just general knowledge. It's become much more commercialized. Next up in Thailand, Pad Thai, the noodle dish, has earned a spot in Taste Atlas' ranking of the world's best stir-fried dishes, coming in at number 5. The dish was celebrated for its balance of sweet, sour, and salty flavors among
more of
delightful
a
texture
Pad See Ew
contrast.
person.
Other popular dishes also made the list, including Pad Krapao, Pad See Ew. This recognition highlights Thailand's rich culinary tradition and global love for flavored packed stir-fries. Thai food, world famous, of course.
Yeah,
if you never tried Pad Thai,
yeah, the stir-fried
definitely an
Thai
experience.
noodles
Let me
are
know
pretty
if you
good.
enjoy Pad Thai. For me personally, it's a bit sweet, no matter where.
Yeah, I don't like
sometimes
Pad
they get
Thai
it right,
because of
at
the
least in my
sweetness.
taste. It's just the
I like the
ingredients, but I
Pad See
prefer
Ew
something more like Pad See Ew or even Char Kway Teow. What are your thoughts on? Actually, the list is right here if you guys want to see the top 50 stir-fried dishes. Typically, I don't give much weight to
beef
these,
chow fun.
that's really
that's the Chinese,
out,
right?
But let me know your thoughts about your favorite stir-fried dish
basically.
in any country you visited. Let's finish off with a couple positive pieces of news. Saudi Arabian ambassador to Manila Faisal Ibrahim Mahdi sends off Filipino conjoined twins Clea and Maurice, and on Thursday, the conjoined twins will undergo a separation surgery in Saudi Arabia under the Arab state's humanitarian assistance programs. Absolutely wonderful. Don't get me wrong, this is not going to wash over everything else they do in these countries. When I say these countries, I mean against human rights and especially OFWs. I'm not blind to this. A lot of OFW problems, and specifically Saudi Arabia or these oil-rich countries in that region. But for these two, hopefully there's a successful surgery and this can be a life-changing experience. So good for them and good for the Saudis having this program to at least help some people. And lastly, the Davao City Veterinarian's Office ramps up efforts this May with free neutering, anti-rabies shots, and vibes services in barangays. So some dogs getting some free vet treatment. Now it's time for a segment, Yesterday Today, where I read some of the most popular comments regarding our previous video. A big thank you for free speech.
Oh. Okay, well, he's gonna start just thanking people from his last video. But there you have it. Thank you. Good sir. UK girl faces life in prison for smuggling weed. Meanwhile, the guy who crashed into Naya, killing people, gets the equivalent of $1,800 bail. Yeah. What a world. Thanks, Alex. Yeah. Yeah. And that's just how it be sometimes, man. That's just how it be sometimes. That's the way she goes. Alex, the Chinese Navy do so-called maneuvers just outside Australian and New Zealand waters. What BS? I look forward to your news reports every morning. Keep us on great ears. Yeah, they always do that shit. Victims of romance scams are not predominantly young. Yeah, they have. Yeah, exactly. They're right. There were those recent cases with right, the old people with the right the famous motherfucker, right? They had the famous people filter on. Someone was Brad Pitt, and they basically got like some 50-year-old person and scammed them. So yeah, I mean, it happens. AI will filter. Here you go. Asia now. Alright, let's see. Sowell reacts to Pope Leo rejecting LGBTQ ideology. No, there's a fucking. He didn't even look. Like, fuck your pride flag. Western culture often seeks to promote sympathy for beliefs and practices that contradict the gospel. For example, the homosexual lifestyle and alternative families made up of the same-sex partners and their adoptive children. Ouch. As you can see, this is his stance on same-sex marriages.
Let me begin by addressing the broader context of Pope Leo's statement that Western culture often seeks to promote sympathy for beliefs and practices
that contradict the gospel, right? He is a man of faith, right? He is a religious man who believes in the gospel, who believes in the word of Jesus and God, so he will follow it. And that means no same-sex marriages or same-sex partners or whatever.
That contradict the gospel, for example, the homosexual lifestyle and alternative families made up of
basically no transgenderism, none of that shit.
Because it touches on something I've written
going
about
back to traditional
the infiltration
religion
of ideological elites, what I call the anointed, into institutions that were never meant to serve their agendas. The Catholic Church, like universities or media outlets, has increasingly faced pressure to conform to secular norms.
Well, I mean, because you literally have, you have splinter groups of the faith that decided to do their weird, weird little own, segment.
Those pushed by a self-appointed intellectual
Even
class
though some of those guys
that
are
believes
acting
it has a
in,
monopoly
against the
on moral
faith.
and social progress. These elites champion causes like LGBTQ ideology, framing them as moral imperatives, and they expect every institution,
Yeah,
including
to
religious ones, to
indulge
fall in
in it.
line.
It's
What
like,
we're
no,
seeing with Pope
not
Leo's
everyone's gonna do
rejection of
that.
this ideology is a rare and principled stand against this encroachment. In my book, The Vision of the Anointed, I argue that these elites operate under a vision that assumes their moral superiority,
Correct. Yeah.
dismissing traditional values as backward without engaging their substance. The Pope's position, rooted in Catholic doctrine, resists this pressure by asserting that the Church's mission is to uphold eternal truths.
Yeah, it's the same way with some certain judges too, when they're all like, "No, it's my way or the highway," and then you have to get some lawyers to be like, "No, it's." But these cases show that blah blah blah, right? It's just like, "No, it's my way or the highway." They fucking right. They become Karens, and it's just like, can't we just noose the judges? Can we just get rid of these dumbasses?
This is significant because it reaffirms
Making
the
it
Church's
fucking
role as a
annoying.
counterweight to secular ideology, something that's been eroding as institutions bend to elite demands. It's proper for the Pope to resist because capitulating to ideologues whose vision conflicts with religious doctrine would undermine the Church's entire reason for being. The anointed don't seek dialogue, they seek submission. And
Yes.
Pope Leo's refusal to comply is a
Correct.
defense of intellectual and spiritual.
Right, exactly. They seek submission. They don't want you disassociating with their opinions. They want you to step in line. They want you to follow what they say. They want to dictate everything to you. They're like the Marxists, right? Fucking commies.
Spiritual integrity. Now consider the papacy as a political
They're
institution.
trying to say, hey, you must hold this view and you
knowledge
must
and
follow it.
decisions. No matter its
Because it's
spiritual
my
mission,
view or the
the
highway.
Vatican
right?
operates in a world of power, patronage, and political incentives. Popes have long navigated pressures to align with secular authorities, whether kings, governments, or cultural elites, to maintain influence or resources. Some, like Pope Francis, lean toward accommodation on issues like LGBTQ inclusion to broaden appeal, but this risks diluting the Church's core principles. Pope Leo's decision to prioritize doctrine over political expediency is a deliberate...
Yeah, they don't give a, right, the religion does not care for political correctness that some of these fuckheads are spouting, or the weird identity politics that some of these fuckheads are trying to use. There's none of that shit in religion. None. Same with the old ways.
rejection of this path. It signals
Our
an understanding
forefathers
that
did
chasing
not
secular
care about
approval
that.
often
There was
leads
none
institutions
of that
to betray
shit.
their
But
foundational
now we have a
mission.
lot of it.
In my work, I've
some
emphasized
reason.
that institutions mirror their incentives. When they prioritize short-term popularity over long-term integrity, they
You guys
lose
have lost
their
your
way.
ways.
Pope
Fucking
Leo's
lambs to the
stance, by
goddamn
contrast,
slaughter.
reflects a commitment to the Church's eternal purpose, even if it means foregoing
I guess we're
the
back to Lord of
applause
the Flies, and we need to
progressive
fucking
elites.
shellac people,
This
yeah?
choice is significant because it reorients the papacy toward its spiritual roots, resisting the temptation to become just another player in the global culture wars. Let's delve deeper into the political dynamics at play because the papacy's actions ripple beyond theology. In Wealth, Poverty, and Politics, I discuss how institutions face trade-offs when they challenge powerful interests. Pope Leo's rejection of LGBTQ ideology doesn't just defy external elites. It also risks alienating progressive factions within the Church, cardinals, bishops, or laity who've embraced modern cultural norms. This internal tension is critical. The Vatican isn't a monolith. It's a complex bureaucracy with its own power struggles.
Literally, all these people are doing are flexing, like, what they wear and what they talk about. It's like, okay, all right, good for you. I'm gonna go this way now. Bye.
By taking this stand, Pope Leo is signaling that he's willing to endure internal dissent
Not my
to
problem.
preserve doctrinal purity. This is a high-stakes move because those who control resources or narratives within institutions often resist challenges to their influence. Progressive Catholics, particularly in Western nations, may push back
Oh
through
God,
public
this is so
criticism
fucking weird.
or reduced engagement, which could strain the church's cohesion. Yet this also presents an opportunity. By clarifying the church's
It's just, yeah,
stance, Pope Leo could galvanize
exactly.
those who feel the church has drifted too far towards secularism, reinforcing its identity as a moral
Yeah,
counterweight. To put
exactly.
this in historical perspective, let's consider parallels to other popes who took bold stands, a topic I've touched on when analyzing institutional change. Pope John Paul II, for instance, was unwavering on issues like contraception and same-sex
That's true.
marriage, facing fierce criticism, but
Right, the
ultimately
Pope that passed
strengthening
away,
the
he was
church's
kind of,
conservative
he
base.
was more of a
His long
liberal,
tenure
right?
showed
It was
that
more
principled
of
leadership
the,
can reshape an institution's
he allowed
trajectory
the
even under
secular, right?
pressure.
He
A
allowed
more
these guys to
speculative
break off
parallel is
into
Pope
their
John
weird
Paul I,
secular
whose
shit, right?
33-day papacy in
So it's like,
1978
at
ended
the same time,
abruptly,
he was,
fueling theories about resistance from Vatican
he was,
insiders.
it
While
was
Pope
hard,
Leo's stance is
right? He said
conservative
some,
rather than reformist, the risk
he
of
said
institutional
fructogeny,
pushback is
right?
similar.
He
In a
didn't
conflict
he
of
didn't
visions,
accept
I note that
fructogeny,
those
but
who
then
challenge
when
entrenched
he said that,
interests,
everyone was
whether
like, "Oh, you said
ideological
the
or
bad
bureaucratic,
word," and he
often
was just
face
like, "Oh, I'm
reprisals.
sorry." It's like, what the
If Pope
fuck?
Leo remains unbending, he
God
could
damn it,
encounter
Pope!
subtle resistance, leaks to
You're
the
not a real
media,
fucking
financial
Christian, are
pressures,
you?
or even calls for his resignation from liberal factions. The church's history, from the
It's like,
Renaissance
I mean,
popes
I
to
don't want to
modern
fucking
times,
besmirch his
is
name, but it's
rife
like,
with such
rest in
power
peace.
struggles. Yet
Sorry.
leaders who endure these attacks often leave a
Just,
lasting legacy.
I
Pope
don't know.
Leo's courage could
Like,
redefine the
all this
church's
shit didn't
path,
have to happen,
provided
right?
he
Like,
navigates the inevitable backlash with strategic clarity. But the consequences for the church and society are where my principle of unintended consequences becomes critical, as I've outlined in Basic Economics. Pope Leo's stance could rally the faithful, particularly those disillusioned with the church's perceived drift towards secularism. By reaffirming traditional teachings, he might
yeah.
strengthen the church's core
I mean,
identity.
honestly, I think this is a good time to like reset some of this shit, right? Because some people have stopped using religion or stopped going to church or right or have taken a different approach, right?
Attracting those who seek a moral anchor in a relativistic world.
And then you
This
have
could
some
enhance the
people who
church's
are
appeal in regions
regaining
like
their
Africa
faith
or Latin America, where conservative values remain
or
strong.
looking
But there's a
looking for
significant downside. The
different
Vatican
values
relies
and
on
right
relationships
certain
with Western
religions.
governments, educational institutions, and a vast network of Catholic charities, many of which operate in societies that have embraced LGBTQ rights. Rejecting this ideology risks alienating secular donors who fund these operations,
Oh
potentially
yeah, there's a lot of
straining the
people who
church's financial
that's the
and
issue, right?
diplomatic
At the end of the
ties.
day, they're
In
looking for
Europe and North
funding, money to
America, where
push their
secularism
agenda and
dominates,
stuff,
this could weaken the
right?
church's cultural
Money makes the
influence, at
world
least in the
go
short
round.
term. Progressive Catholics may also feel marginalized,
Right.
accelerating
Money
schismatic
is what
movements
makes
or
these
informal
systems,
defections to
get the
more
fucking
liberal
machine greased
denominations.
up and
Every
going, right?
decision has trade-offs, and the unintended consequences here could include both a strengthened conservative base and a fractured broader coalition. Let's explore another dimension, the impact on the church's global mission. In the quest for cosmic justice, I argue that attempts to impose universal ideals often ignore cultural and historical realities.
Yes.
The Anointed's push for LGBTQ
Right. These people are pushing for basically a dream, in a sense. They're not pushing for an actual realistic goal that they can strive for. No, they are dreaming something that is basically unattainable. I hate to say it. Like, you cannot
inclusion
change
assumes a
your
one
fucking bio. You cannot change your bio index. You can't change your DNA. Once it's set, it is set. Once you're born, that is your DNA right there. Right? The DNA you got from your mom and your dad. right? Whether you got an XY or a right XX, that's it.
Size fits all morality, but the church operates across diverse cultures from progressive Europe to traditionalist Africa. Pope Leo's stance by prioritizing doctrine acknowledges this
I
diversity.
mean, if you don't want to, there's another way of saying, hey, I wish I wasn't born. That's a fucked up one, but some people think that way.
While maintaining a unified theological core. This could resonate in regions where traditional values hold sway, reinforcing the church's global relevance. However, it may complicate its mission in Western nations where governments and institutions increasingly tie funding or cooperation to progressive values. Catholic charities, for instance, might face pressure to adopt inclusive policies or risk losing grants. While Pope Leo's decision clarifies the church's moral stance,
yeah,
it could
I mean, he made it very clear what
his secular societies.
He made it very clear how he wants to run the church, right? As a pope, or how he's going to run it as pope as of right now, since he's the new pope.
Forcing a reevaluation
He's going
of how it
back to
balances
traditional
principle
ways.
and pragmatism. Now let's address the clash between the Anointed's vision and religious
it seems like
truth,
that.
a theme central to my work. In the vision of the Anointed, I critique elites who impose grand narratives on society, dismissing tradition as bigotry without engaging its foundations.
Yeah.
The push for LGBTQ
I mean, he
inclusion
speaks
in the
about
church
very
is a textbook
briefly, and he's
example.
like, yeah, no,
It's framed as a
we're not
moral
doing this way.
necessity,
We're doing it
with
my way,
dissenters cast
basically.
as cruel or outdated. Yet it rarely grapples with the theological roots of Catholic doctrine.
He briefly touches upon it and being like, yeah, no, I don't want this way. This is not the correct teaching. This is not the way.
Requires confronting evidence and reasoning, not capitulating to fashionable ideologies. The Church's teachings on family and sexuality are grounded in centuries of theological reflection, drawing on Scripture and tradition. Yeah. Dismissing them as irrelevant without rigorous debate is the kind of intellectual arrogance I've critiqued for decades. Pope Leo's stance upholds the Church's role as a guardian of truth, not a mirror of cultural trends.
Correct.
This isn't about denying anyone's humanity.
The last pope was doing a lot of those weird trends too, right?
It's about preserving a framework that has guided millions across time. Another critical angle is the long-term impact
he was getting more people in his congregation that was like literally all over the world.
I argue that intellectuals often prioritize social approval.
Right, he was basically trying to get anyone into the same faith, no matter who it was.
Offering a moral and intellectual
even if they were
a
heretic of the
Pope Leo's stance
who didn't believe all the way.
By refusing to adopt the Anointed's narrative that religion must modernize to remain relevant. Modernization in this context often means surrendering to secular values, which erodes the Church's distinctiveness. By standing firm,
basically. They tried to basically remove. Right, they tried to remove They tried to remove religion in a sense by infecting it with what their unrealistic ideology that goes against their faith, literally. It's in their goddamn rule book.
In its consistency, not its adaptability to every cultural shift. This could enhance its credibility among those who value principle over popularity, but it risks being portrayed as rigid by critics. The trade-off is that institutions that stand for something often alienate those who want them to stand for everything.
I mean, but that's not... I hate to say it, but this is not what... Religion is a secular thing. I mean, I hate to say it, but it is secular in the sense that it is a fundamental faith in certain aspects of trying to be enlightened or trying to follow a path that Christianity or Islam or any of those religions, right, have rule sets and they follow.
Let me offer 5 takeaways, as I often do when dissecting complex
the
issues.
Hebrews.
First, doctrine over popularity. Leadership grounded in
Hanukkah.
principles will always clash with beliefs driven by social fashion. Pope Leo's stance prioritizes eternal truths over transient applause. Second,
The Jews.
institutions mirror incentives.
Jews.
When religious bodies chase
Sorry.
secular approval, they betray their core mission. Pope Leo's resistance
But, yeah,
preserves the church's integrity.
Look,
Third, prepare for backlash. Upholding truth invites
invading
reprisals
the
from
faith,
entrenched
right? These
interests.
guys'
But
religion
history shows
with,
that genuine
right, these
reformers
weird
must
outside
endure
ideas
temporary
that
attacks for
have no
long-term gains.
bearing in
Fourth,
the
unintended
literally
consequences.
goes against
While
their
rallying
rules.
the faithful, this stance may
They're all like,
alienate
no, you
donors
must
and
accept it
progressives,
within your rules
reshaping the
now. What the
church's
fuck are you
global
talking
influence.
about? These
Fifth,
rules have
truth
been
over
made.
narrative.
These rules have not
The
been
church's
broken for
role is to
thousands and
confront
thousands of
reality,
years.
not conform to elite
And then now you're
visions.
gonna try and
Pope
break them
Leo's
with the whatever
courage
you're fucking
could
trying to do.
redefine
Get
the
the
church's
fuck out of
path,
here.
but it won't come without cost. In conclusion, Pope Leo's rejection of LGBTQ ideology is a principled stand against the encroachment of secular elites into religious institutions. It reflects a commitment to doctrine over political expediency,
I hate to say it, but
navigating
you will
the
never
papacy's
break
dual role as a spiritual and political
right.
entity.
You will never let.
While it risks
You cannot
backlash
bend
and
these
unintended
rules for these
consequences,
religions. They
it
will
also
never
offers
allow
a chance
that.
to clarify the church's mission
Like
in a world increasingly
literally
dominated
the people
by
with
the
the
anointed's
utmost
vision.
faith will stop you at
Let's
every
not forget
fucking
that no
turn.
good deed goes unpunished,
They are gonna be
but
like,
the
hey, no, you cannot
alternative,
do this.
surrendering to ideological pressures, is far worse for an institution meant to endure.
I'm not even religious, and I understand religion enough to know that much. You're not going to break these people's faiths to be like, oh yeah, let me bend the rules just for you. It's like, no, that's not gonna happen. Like, Jesus. I don't know. People are just out of their minds trying to, like, worm their way and force people to comply. It's fucking weird. Ugh. It's like that one meme. Call me a woman or I'll fucking do it. And he puts the kid. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with you?